Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Let's Talk Astrology. Today, we're doing another mystery chart episode with our Kepler College enrollees, where they'll be delineating charts together and we'll see how accurate their statements are. And for everybody watching, we'd love to hear your thoughts too. So if you find any interesting observations of your own, let us know in the comments below. Okay, so introducing our fantastic returning panel, can you all give us your name, your big three, and your favorite planet in your chart?
Hi, I'm Chelsea Collins. I am a Pisces rising, Sagittarius sun, and Scorpio moon. And I would say my favorite planet is Venus and Capricorn in the 11th for me.
My name is Laura Canzano. My big threes are Virgo rising, Pisces sun, and a Cancer moon. And I would say my favorite planet, I don't know if it was my favorite, but it's the one that I've had the most interest in trying to decipher is my Venus in Aries in the 8th house.
Yep, Kim Wilshire. I am a Sagittarius sun, Cancer moon, Capricorn rising, and my favorite planet is my 29-degree Mercury right off of my midheaven.
This is our first mystery chart of today, so let's dive in. What do you guys see?
Okay, so I feel like it's someone that, in terms of elements, if I always go to the basics, right? In terms of elements, feels pretty balanced for what I'm seeing, water, earth. So I would say someone that has an even keel in terms of being able to tap into a lot of the different elemental properties of their life. A lot of concentration in the first quarter. So someone that's very self-reliant, you know, this person's famous. We already know that. So of course, these people are always gonna, do well. So I feel like this person does really well for themselves. And having the sun in the first house tells me that this person is very much about themselves and and then being in Leo stage, right? So it gives me famous person vibes right off the bat.
So you've got the sun and domicile in Leo in the first house, which is a strong, strong sense of self, at least, or the need to be seen. You've got Mercury in domicile and exaltation in the second house. So somebody that probably values a high level of intellect, can communicate well, think well, maybe has some sort of form of income in the writing, speaking, someone very good, even maybe with a skill set. Virgo can be a physical manifestation of that, working with their hands, using their brain, mind, intellect to create something also physical and tangible. Second house tends to be quite physical in nature, pertaining to assets, things that we interact with physically, also kind of how we can get our needs met. And then I kind of, Saturn in the 10th, is somebody that might come across quite serious, could also relate to something financial that they do. So again, something physical that they work with or that they deal with in the public realm. So money, assets, the things that we interact with, maybe something associated with like women's issues or something along those lines, just because you've got that Venus in the 12th house ruling that. So Taurus being a feminine sign ruled by Venus, also in a feminine sign. So something along the lines of that is kind of where I'm starting with.
Maybe even something of women outside of society, because it's like it's conjunct Lilith. So is it something that is like taboo with women? Like it's, to me, I'm thinking 12th house hospital. Is it taking care, cancer? I don't know, taking care of women in a certain way that maybe at the time of this person, Pluto and Virgo, I feel like this is someone a long time ago. In terms of the generation this person belongs to. So it's, well, not that old, because
Yeah.
maybe,
Like boomerish.
yeah, like someone in their 60s.
What about you, Kim? What stands out to you?
Well, I was actually wondering because Chiron. You said
Yeah,
Chiron
and
would
I will mention I forgot to add Chiron into these charts, but for the sake of this chart, this Chiron is at 6 degrees Aries,
and
cardinal fire.
because I'm getting something between the ascendant Mars and where Chiron would be. And actually it would create a kite pointing towards Jupiter. So I'm kind of wondering how like their personality, their drive, especially being a Leo rising, Leo sun, how that would play in towards the way that they communicate. So it's like, especially when Chiron's has a grand trine to a sense, but then the fact that there is that opposition to Jupiter, I'd be curious about the way that they communicate and how it's received, if either they have like a difficult past, or if it's more of a motivational building up the people around them kind of energy.
Oh, I like that last bit. There's part of their life where they did, not giving too much away, how can I rephrase this? Well, they did help a lot of people in a way. So I like that. Yeah, last part. Wonderful. And let me add as well, with these house systems, we're using whole sign here. Now, even if you switch this chart in, say, in a quadrant house system and say Placidus, there's not going to be much movement here in terms of the planets changing houses. So this is fairly stable in terms of house positions.
It's interesting, the MC in the 9th house versus the 10th. It always intrigues me because it's not as never as literal what these people do for a living or what they're known for. It might be that someone that is known abroad because of for being a foreigner from somewhere else, or where he or she ended up having her or his career. Is that fair to say?
Certainly famous worldwide.
Worldwide. Okay, well there you go.
In one place, but famous all over the globe.
Trying to think if we can see more like career indication. Mars in the 5th, someone who's very creative and expensive and probably has a lot of energy when they're creating, and it brings them a lot of energy. They're kind of go, go, go kind of person. Whoever worked with that person had to probably catch up to them. Having a Mercury in rulership and Mars in Sagittarius in the 5th house, to me, it shows me someone who was wanting to have fun as well. With 6th house Capricorn with Saturn in the 10th, it is definitely someone that lived its daily life for the work and in a structured way. So whatever creativity was probably beyond everyone's imagination. Was it very imaginative and very kind of otherworldly in a way? And is 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 that something that this person
I
is?
love your delineation. When we find out who it is, certainly on the surface, a lot of energy, a lot of fun, a lot of creative talent, and people who worked around this person absolutely loved this person. So I love where you're going with this.
And like Saturnian gives me like dark beauty. I don't know why. Like it's like the dark side of beauty as well. So maybe that his or her, I don't know why I'm saying hey, his or her way of creating is more of like again the underbelly of tying it to the 12th house, maybe things that are a little more taboo, a little less like bright and colorful.
And maybe bringing that to the forefront, like putting that out there for everyone to see in the form of an art form or music or, kind of that form of expression that maybe would tie into people that might not have had that level of exposure prior to this person. Maybe someone that included people and then brought that out in a way that expressed, what it was really like or what, and try to make that more acceptable within society. Just
Totally.
feeling like, that Jupiterian piece with Jupiter and Libra, 3rd house with Uranus there, ruled by that, in the bounds of Mercury, where it's just super, super strong in this chart. Um, tying in that Mars in Jupiter sign in the 5th of creativity and action, and it could be maybe brash in the way that they express. And then the ruling that MC, it's kind of like tying all of that in. It's just like, yeah, this is different. This is what we probably haven't seen before, but this is really how life is, and this should be acknowledged and represented, and you know, what's a big deal? Is that, something along those lines, kind of like a could give a F kind of thing at some point through all of that thing, I'm just going to do whatever I need to do to express whatever this is, bring that out more.
Yeah, you
Wonderful,
could go
wonderful.
further.
Certainly applies to this person. Sorry, Laura, go ahead.
No, it's gonna go even further, like tying his Mars back to his moon, his Mars,
Mhm.
his moon in the 4th house. So even like the subject of the creativity is things that make him feel comfortable. And Scorpio is one of those signs that go deep, right? It's like it's probably almost obsessive what he creates. It comes from like something that he likes, she or he likes, they like, and there's might be some slight obsession where it comes to wanting to do well and feeling like it's a representation of where this person is from
On
almost.
that point, would you want to do the foundational energy and see where we land in the chart signature? Okay,
Yeah,
so how many planets have we got in cardinal?
3.
3.
3 for cardinal. So we have the cardinal water for Venus and the cardinal air for the Uranus and Jupiter. What have we got for fixed?
4.
Oh, excellent. Yep, we have the fixed Earth, we have the Saturn, the fixed water we've just been talking about with the Moon and the Neptune, and this very powerful Sun domicile, fixed fire. Fantastic. And what do we have left for mutable?
3 as well, right?
Yep.
3 as well. Yeah, we've got the Mercury, Pluto, and the Mars. So you were correct at the beginning. So now we're talking about modalities. It's fairly balanced, but there is a winner in terms of the fixed energy. Let's move on to our elements. So what have we got for fire?
1
2.
for fixed
Mars.
fixed fire.
Or
Just fire, just the elements.
Oh, just fire. Sorry.
2. We got the sun and
2. Yep.
Yep, we've got the Sun and the Mars in fire. What have we got in air?
2.
Just the 2, the Jupiter, Uranus. What have we got for Earth?
3.
3 for
Mercury,
Earth. We've got the Saturn, the Mercury, Pluto, and what do we have for water?
we also have 3.
Yep. So we have the Moon, the Neptune, and the Venus. So how are we going to break this element tie?
With the ascendant. So 1 more for fire.
Excellent. Yep. So the ascendant is fire. So 1 for fire. And the midheaven is also fire. So the angles aren't helping us out. What do we have to do next?
Sun and moon, right?
Excellent. Yep. Look at the lights. What have we got?
And
Right.
another fire and then another water.
Fantastic. So we've just about got our winner with water. So in combination, our chart signature or foundational energy is fixed water. And it actually tying into what you were saying before, Laura. So what do you guys think? The planet's activated here, the ruler of this house. What are your guys' general thoughts?
I mean, it brings my attention to the Saturn opposition.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the first thing that it did for me. So I really wonder how that like emotion versus the stable, especially with its the tension between them, especially with the moon not being happy where it is. Um, I could see that playing a big piece to it. It also brings attention to the T square that the ascendant, or would you call it a cross with the ascendant descendant moon Saturn, that tension that it's creating, kind of pulling in all directions of the chart, where I could see that being a challenging thing that would bring that drive, especially between the ascendant, the Saturn, like the structures around them. I'd be really curious to know what the difficulties. It keeps bringing my attention to what kind of challenges they had to overcome.
Great points.
Well, maybe just an uncomfortable home life, right? Which is weird for the moon, right? Because moon likes to be at home, and fourth house isn't a terrible place for the moon. But in Scorpio, with its Saturn opposition, it's like being pulled out of the public because you have this need to express whatever that is, or having to, be taken from home at a young age, or something regarding, mom was unavailable to nurture you. And so therefore you had to find that, somehow maybe through the adoration of the public, which could be quite harsh at times, something along those lines. If you go just from an archetypal fourth house moon in fall situation, something where home was not a comfortable place. Maybe there was some drug use, or there was some level of dysfunction, or just being unavailable, with Neptune being co-present there.
Excellent
Something like
delineations.
that.
And what I can tell you about this person is that at a young age, issues with home life. I believe the father left the family in infancy. I'm not sure with the relationship of the mother, but there was some issues with the home life. And like you're saying, Chelsea, I always find Neptune, because I've got it in my own chart, Neptune in the fourth, some confusions around early life or the home family life. So absolutely hitting the nail on the head with this person. Yep. Okay,
Um,
what else do we want to talk about? What else do you guys see?
Well, I mean, the moon, is ruling that Venus in the 12th house. So you've got another signature of where there's just, this need to feel at home that was never available, or something where there's a missed connection with a feminine energy, um that has been maybe a wound, or something of some sort for this person, or she or he struggles with relationships with women because there wasn't something demonstrated at an early age. And so, relationships tend to be their own undoing on some level, or something that they just have always craved but never have ever received. I don't know, something like that. If you bringing in that Venus, moon is also in the bounds of Venus. So it
the
really
balance.
does kind of look to Venus's state of, how is this moon, expressing through that Venus in the 12th house.
Wonderful. Okay,
Another
sorry, go
another
ahead.
thing is I'm noticing none of his planet or her planets are in retrograde. So he's a
Mm.
very forward energy moving person.
Excellent observation.
There's no
Yeah.
element
No
that's
planets
kind of
retrograde.
holding him or her back. So force of nature for sure, this person, whoever he or she is, someone that will walk into a room will get noticed, for whatever reason, whether it's good or bad. Authority figure as well, just because of Saturn being in the 10th. I feel like it's probably a person that, commands authority on some type of level.
Yeah, I was actually even thinking about the rising being a Leo rising, but having the Aries midheaven, like both of those things are so like delightful for the sun. So it's like I just kind of
Mm.
like that combination a lot. Um, and even just the trine between the sun and the midheaven. It's like I feel like that is an energy that I'd be really curious to see how that plays out when we find out who that is.
Yeah, like self-reliant, pick yourself up by your bootstraps type situation, and overcoming sense of, I've got all this stuff in personally, but overall in the public, and just for my own survival, I'm going to go ahead and just move forward. And what
And
Laura was
even
saying. Yeah.
and even with the ascendant trine to Mars, like that's also an interesting energy. So it's like where's
Mm.
that showing? It's like I'm really curious about the drive, especially a fiery Mars. Um, so yeah,
So
I'm
many strong planets too.
mhm.
Like the dignities of important planets are in good dignity, and except for the moon maybe, but it's maybe not very good at emotional stuff, but everything else, this person is, yeah, intense.
You guys are so good.
Gives me
Okay,
intense vibes.
any final thoughts on this chart before we reveal who it is, and then we go back and see what we chatted about?
No, I'm curious.
Okay, Chelsea, I'm going to let you guess. Who are you thinking it is?
Is it Madonna?
No, but I like where you're
Oh,
going.
dang. I thought I was getting close. I'm trying to pin her age close to that. She's got similar signatures. I couldn't remember if she
I
was
think she's got
a
the
Gemini rising or not. I know she's a Leo, but I can't remember.
yeah, Leo with the Virgo Mercury, I think.
Yeah.
I think she's Virgo rising, though, I believe. I'd have to double check.
Oh, is she?
I'd have
Okay.
to
Well, that
double
makes
check.
sense too. Yeah.
I could never guess. It's impossible.
Okay, let's find out, and then we'll chat.
Oh, dang. I was wondering if
Oh.
yeah, I was wondering if we would discuss him at all with
It's funny,
everything
I
going
looked at
on.
his chart a lot when in his passing because I'm a huge fan. I can't believe I didn't recognize it.
Absolutely. But you guys were so spot on with your delineations. That's why I included this quote here. If I hadn't had the experience of being famous, I would have searched for it my whole life. I'd have just gone
Hmm.
on and trying to find it. And you were speaking to that element there back in this chart. So let's go back briefly.
Yeah, like that sun, obviously, like the sun and what you were saying, the addiction and the oh, Matthew.
And you guys touched on that. I think obviously we've got a lot of fire here. We've got this bold, fixed fire, sun, domicile. He's going to walk into a room and people are going to know he's there. As you mentioned, it trines this midheaven. The sun is exalted at the midheaven. It's got that Mars in the connection, the fifth house of creativity, this wonderful fire, this wonderful humor. But then I think there's a darker element here. You've already talked about the moon. So the moon with the applying opposition to Saturn, some restriction there. Obviously, the moon being in fall as well, some emotional difficulties. That Mercury, yes, it's strong, it's domicile, but we're in that applying conjunction to the South Node and Pluto. That's quite
Yeah,
heavy
it
for
is.
those darker thoughts and with some of the issues with the emotional nature. So it felt like for me that this mask of this fire and this wonderful character, and you guys beautifully delineated his great enthusiasm and energy, but there was this darker undercurrent, unfortunately, I think, for Matthew, and such a sad ending for Matthew in the end.
Yeah, and it's the worst ending. Especially now that they're saying there's been foul play, like someone, was done to him. So it's even
Which
sadder.
I think speaks to that Venus in the 12th. It's like that literally the last aspect, the last part of his chart is that undoing, that dark energy to it too.
And they say that they accused a female drug dealer. I don't know if you guys
That's
know
a great
that.
point. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
That's a
that's
great
exactly
point.
what I'm thinking.
Charlie Sheen's ex-wife, right?
Oh, was it?
Brooke Muller or somebody. She's one of them. There's like 5 people now, I think.
Yeah,
But
I did hear
what's
that.
interesting to me now that this is, you can't forget that Saturn right now transiting his 8th house in Pisces, and he died in water. So that's really interesting how you have,
And overdose too, which
yes. And so there's that water piece from the 12th showing up in the 8th house. Jupiter is in the 10th right now. No, wait, Jupiter is in his 11th. Sorry. I feel like Jupiter and Taurus was like forever for me. I don't know why, but but yeah, the transiting Saturn in the 8th is interesting, and I actually have someone that I used to know that I just learned just passed away that's Leo rising with Saturn in his 8th house. So
Oh, wow. I'm sorry to hear
kind
that.
of, yeah, it's kind of interesting how that plays out. That water element can be quite literal when Saturn comes to the 8th.
rest in peace, sir.
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay, on to our second mystery chart of the afternoon. What stands out for you guys? Oh, well, let me just add before we begin. Again, this is whole sign. The planets that do move, if you move this to, say, a Placidus in a quadrant house system, that Jupiter is going to move into the 5th, and the Saturn will be in the 11th in a Placidus system.
And the Chiron.
Oh, yeah. The Chiron for this chart is at 20 degrees Sagittarius.
They're squaring the Mars in the 12th. So that could be interesting. But the first thing I was noticing is the exact trine between the Sun and Mars. So that was cute. with Mercury conjunct. It's right off the sun. So
I know you, Kim, you love those exact numbers at
do.
22 and
I
22.
do. And the fact that Mercury is retrograde, so it's applying to that exact 22 aspect. I'm very curious to know like how they communicate, especially with an eighth house energy. I'd be very curious about the kind of energy that they bring. Is it kind of like the hidden parts of the eighth house, or is it the other people's resources? Is it the energy interchange between other people? Like, I feel like the conversations had with this person would be very interesting. And then also just with so many planets in the 7th to 12th, I'd be interested in how that plays out too, especially with everything going on in the 7th, with especially with the moon on the descendant not too far.
You have, like, to me, that the first thing I notice is the ascendant descendant nodes, always being close to an ascendant. It always feels like there's a lot of faded energy in where this person is coming from and going. And also the Uranus in the 10th, to me, kind of tells me seen as eccentric or different or alien-like, or there's might be, from at least from the outside world. And then the fact that Jupiter is kind of hanging on its own. I mean, it is in conjunct to Venus, but it's still kind of hanging on its own from the rest of the planets. So there's definitely something that is always amplified, and lucky, maybe. But like, just looking at the chart pattern, it's interesting how, everything is between Jupiter and Neptune. Everything is held in that. Is that it's considered a bull, right? Or is it a
I would
bucket?
Would it be
say,
too far for a bowl because Jupiter's a little further out? It's like if it wasn't for Jupiter, I would say a bowl. But it still feels like very contained energy nonetheless.
So I think maybe even things happening for this person a little later in life, or just because in the early life there wasn't as much energy. Ascendant and Neptune makes me think of, creativity, illusions, creating illusions with themselves, or people having a hard time deciphering who this person is. Having Venus, where's Venus ruling his ascendant in Aries, which is in detriment. So again, there's might be some, and opposite the ascendant, there's really like maybe even a contradiction in how people perceive him versus how he or she perceives herself. And the Uranus at the top, there's like definitely this like weird character kind of person, or like hard to grasp even for themselves, right? Even those seventh, Venus being in the 7th house angular, it gives it a little bit of power, but it's still in detriment, and it can be rash and jump into relationships quickly. I would say this person probably is in and out of relationships.
This person had plenty of relationships.
Sorry?
This person had plenty of relationships.
Yeah, because usually Venus in Aries that's the issue. Or it's one of the issues, one of the many issues.
Well,
well,
I'm also looking at the fact that it's right under the descendant. So in a different house sign, that Venus is in the 6th house. So I am interested in like the relationships and how they play in the day to day versus the intimate
That's
piece
an
of.
amazing observation.
So
Uh,
Venus is in her own bounds though in Aries, and so she actually gains dignity when she is within her own bounds within a sign, even though she might not have essential dignity um, elsewhere. When you look at bounds, you also look at Venus is also Jupiter is also in Venus's bounds and domicile. That helps Venus. Saturn, even though it's in the 12th, is also in Venus's bounds. So a lot, if you're looking at bounds, really does go back to that angular Venus in Aries, who isn't as bad. So there's some sort of like this person has the ability to still overcome, what might have gone on. And so there that I don't think is anything to a lot of times people say when there's a planet within its own bounds within the sign, then there's a lot of protection. It could seem like it's almost in domicile. So if you take it as if Venus was in her own domicile in Aries, she would have a lot of control over her relationship. So she would probably be the one that would be in control. Maybe she's the one that, or he's the one that, actually does make all the decisions over partnership, really does control the partner, decides when they get together, when they break up, whatever that is. But I also feel like there's a lot of artistic component to this person with Libra rising, Venus and Aries angular, seeing that, Neptune on the ascendant, moon involved, and then just kind of ruling all the Mercury and Sun and Taurus, like there's still this artistic piece to this person. And I feel like sometimes Venus in Aries expresses more physically, like dance or musician, where they're physically doing something to express their themselves. And then with Jupiter there, I would sense that this person probably has a healthy constitution within their body, right? Jupiter and Pisces could also signify a dancer with the feet. So something along those lines is possible.
yeah,
And then
Pisces is
maybe,
also, isn't it like Pisces, like film and
yeah.
could also be like
Mm-hmm.
movies.
Yeah.
Movies.
But maybe with all of that coming in from the 12th house, that Saturn Mars is more of like sustained self-discipline. So it
Mm.
doesn't necessarily have to show up as like super negative. Um, with Saturn retrograde. It's like you just have this sustainable work ethic from a self place. Like maybe find it more from that functional place with that even though Mercury is, combust, it's like there's still this intuitive self-discipline that this person has probably had to learn over time to achieve whatever skill set they do, like not somebody
Absolutely
that
spot on. This person
fills
is
it off
certainly
easily.
highly disciplined, excellent delineation, and for what they had to overcome, even more apparent in that self-determination. Excellent.
I mean, the ruler of the fourth being in the 12th is not a good thing, I think, in terms of, first of all, it being Saturn in the 12th. Again, I think we might be talking about someone who didn't have the happiest home growing up, or probably a very difficult and strict, or um s- eh, because it's in Virgo and Virgo is ruled by Mercury, like more strict and difficult in the way this person was spoken to or communicated with, or the type of rules around the house, not necessarily like physically, but definitely like some psychological intense energy in the home. A very structured home, because you don't always have to go to
Hmm.
like abuse or anything like that, but definitely not like the most lovey-dovey, not the probably not the parents that would hug this person every day, um, which is interesting as well. Um, and the moon ruling the MC, like you were saying, Chelsea, like moon in Aries is pretty intense. I always see moon in Aries as a little mature emotionally. I don't know why, because it's the first sign and it's Aries and they just don't think. So they just go and experience, and then they're like, ah. So uh I feel like there's might be a little bit of that in the way this person drives his or her career. Their career might have been kind of like a go and learn afterwards, you know, which that Uranus tells me that maybe there was multiple ways into this person getting into lots of changes, lots of different ways in.
Or sudden fame, you know, or a quick
Yeah,
rise to fame with Uranus there in Aries as a fast, you know, kind of thing.
yeah, totally.
And with Jupiter, yeah, Jupiter trine Uranus there from the 6th.
Mm,
Yeah, sudden huge boom.
yeah, huge boom. And you know, when you're talking about the Venus, Chelsea, I started looking at it as Placidus. The fact also that you were talking about the creativity of this person, the fact that Jupiter slips into the 5th, if you're looking at it in Placidus, there's a lot of creative energy too, right? And Pisces is Neptune, you know, it's connected to Neptune in modern rulership. So that's why it's
Mm.
making me think about movies.
Mm.
Is this a movie, an actor, or a director, or
I'm not going to go
We'll
out on
find
a limb
out.
this time and guess.
that's all I'm saying. I don't know. I'm not gonna go as far as maybe it's a dancer. I agree with dancing. I think dancing is a good guess too.
You're all sort of in the realms of what you're talking about, but that's certainly that artistic streak you guys are honing in on. Absolutely wonderful. Anything else? Anything else that stands out in this chart that we haven't chatted about?
I'm curious about that 15-degree Pluto as well. Just I love when things are like right in the middle of a fixed sign. It's kind of like that cross quarter marker. So it's like perfect middle of summer kind of energy. But for a Pluto energy there, I think that's an interesting signature in the 11th. Um, just like what are they doing that's transformative to the social circles that they're in.
Public, yeah.
Yeah, like it feels like a bit of that mover shaker energy. Um, especially to be exact, you know, I love that it's exactly 15-degree Neptune. So it's like to have that sextile to Neptune in the first house right off the ascendant. It's like,
The illusion this person creates is transformative. So I'm going back to film.
okay. I can see it.
All
I can see
right.
it.
Any final thoughts before we reveal the second mystery chart?
I think also the Mars and just Mars, Saturn, and even the Wheel of Fortune being in the 12th, it makes me think of motivations, maybe not dark, but like under hidden, like things that motivate him or him or her. Again, sorry. I don't know why I keep doing that. Misogyny me. Them.
The they them.
The they them, whoever this person is, having, you know, Mercury being kind of approaching the sun, like Kim was talking about, and ruling this 12th house. It's kind of blinded, and it's kind of, you know, it's sun in the face, can't see, but also like somehow his Mars is there, so it's like, is this person's motivation or drive almost hidden from them, or it comes from a darker place or a hidden place of society, like things that, and the fact that, you know, and it's tied to the 8th house too, which is also like the occult and the the things that are a little taboo. So I wonder if there's a little bit of dabbling in a world that is not like what we would call mainstream society, but definitely transformative for the greater, or whatever he or she does. Maybe.
Wonderful. All right. Are we ready?
And we're ready.
Any wild guesses?
No, film. That's all I'm gonna
Madonna.
say.
Oh,
Stevie
nice.
Wonder.
I saw
we
him
go.
perform live. Oh my gosh. It was amazing. He was so good.
So I was completely off with film. He does like to dance. He always dances when he's
There you
playing the
go. It
piano.
is robust in that way. Absolutely. So let's go
Yeah.
back. Now, what you guys were touching on as well, which I thought was interesting, I actually want to go more towards health on this part. Obviously, a brilliant singer,
Mm.
but for me in this chart, there's a lot of health indicators when I was just figuring out which charts to pull up. But we see there's a lot going on. We've got Neptune on the ascendant. Now, there's different ways to look at eyesight, and let us know in the comments. But a lot of people talk about the lights, so the condition of the sun and the moon. Now, the moon is in a malefic sign and the outer sect malefic in this chart as a day chart. The moon is in that opposition to Neptune. We also have that sun in the 8th, square Pluto. Yes, it's separating by about 7 degrees, but health issues, we've got the 6th and 12th axis going on as well. So it's quite interesting as I pulled up the chart, and you can see maybe some of the health issues. And of course, and I like what you were saying, Chelsea, about that determination and that discipline that he had to overcome a disability in the fact all he achieved in his life, which was a really spot on remark. And I think, Kim, you were alluding to as well, collaboration as well. We've got a lot of those planets sandwiched. What would we say? Probably the third quadrant here in this chart. So a lot of collaboration, a lot of working with others, and just the amazing music he has produced over the decades. What other thoughts do you guys have?
I always find that people with Libra rising do have a tendency to be known for their voices. I think Britney Spears has Libra rising. I think an unrectified John Mayer chart has Libra rising. You can hear like Venus come through physically, I think, with a lot of people with Libra rising. I mean, we might have a host here in our group that might have this and has a distinct voice. So,
Waffles on a lot.
It's true though. I find that people with Libra rising, they have a propensity for the leaning towards the artistic or just having like a very soothing sounding vocal component to themselves. So,
Absolutely, absolutely.
yep.
And you guys were touching on that wonderful Jupiter. Now, in a Placido house system, we could maybe look at that in the 5th for children. I believe he's got 9 children with, I don't know if he was married 5 times or with 5 different partners, but in the 6th, he did a lot of charity work as well. I mean, it's a
yeah.
bit too far for the trine to the midheaven, but we certainly, as you pointed out,
Yeah.
got that domicile Jupiter with the connection to Uranus, like wonderful charity work, always giving. So I love that Jupiter in Pisces feel. I think we've got the ascendant and the angles. We've got the ascendant and the midheaven in the terms of Mercury, bringing in that extra component of voice. What is he known for? What is he known for in society? His voice. And but you guys, I love where you guys were going with this. You really honed in on that Venus.
Well, and it's interesting if you do take the trine from Jupiter to Uranus, doing something that is a bit more outside of the norm of what we would view as a iconic vocalist singer publicly. I mean, everybody knows who Stevie Wonder is. I mean, I think there's only a handful of people, like Ray Charles comes to mind, people that have struggled with some sort of blindness, but then still memorizes a piano or whatever and still plays instruments just based on how they feel through that process. So yeah, that's pretty awesome. And that self-discipline piece. Do you know if he rose to fame quickly or has he just always
Yes, you
like
guys
how
got
did
that
he
right. He
okay.
believed. I was watched the bio. There's a biography channel that I watch when I'm picking out charts. But I believe he was very young. I think was he a teenager? I'm gonna have to double check, but it was certainly very young. So you guys were on the spot. We're talking about early rise to fame and all through the years. I think it was very, very early for Stevie Wonder with all that talent. Absolutely. And Chelsea, absolutely with that component. Now, I believe we didn't do the foundational energy on this
Oh
one,
yeah.
but a pretty, even in the elements, Earth wins out, it looks like here. We've got the Saturn, the Mars, the Mercury, and the Sun. Does anything else come close? No, I think that wins out. So you're absolutely right. Yeah. Wonderful.
Well, in that second house, ruler in the 12th being kind of disciplined through that mercurial, that second, 8th, 12th thing, other people's money through voice, that artistic piece with the Taurus sun and Mercury there. Yeah, it's such a positive manifestation of a difficult house, right? It's an example of how you can have difficult placements, but how they could be functional on some level. So there's that too.
That's an excellent point, and certainly loved by all. We take that Jupiter; it's exalted at the midheaven, and yeah, great music. What's your favorite song? I think "Superstition" for me. What about you guys?
Yeah, I like
Superstition's
that
good.
one. Mm-hmm.
I can't think of one on top of my head, but I really love Stevie Wonder.
Yeah.
I'm bad with names of anything though, so
All right, wonderful. On to our final chart of the evening. Okay, this is our final chart. What stands out?
woohoo.
That
All
Gemini
right.
stellium, dang.
I think you said
Stellium
last time, Chelsea, that I don't use stellium, so I was like, right, I want to pick one with the stellium. So here's one for you.
governed by a Mercury in Leo, so in the fourth angular Mercury,
Mm-hmm.
separated just enough from the sun where it can function and not be blinded by the ego. So that's really interesting, even though Leo can become egotistical, the wrong kind of energy. The exact conjunction of Mars Jupiter, wow, in the fifth house. Extremely creative person, uses its mind. Yeah, and then also ruled having the second, the fourth, and the fifth house connected together is definitely makes money off of his mind and creativity. His mind, their mind.
We're gonna have to somehow find a way around that, right? It
Never
happens
mind.
in every episode, right? Like, and it's funny because in a lot of times it's correct. It's, as I always perk up when I hear it. But I think that the Mars Jupiter, I might in Virgo have some experience with that conjunction and to that degree actually. But I think that again that sustainable drive. The Mars Jupiter could be explosive. I've been told, and I might agree that, Jupiter helps Mars out here, but Mars doesn't, or Jupiter doesn't. It can only do so much just with that, with it being in detriment. And one thing I did learn with the bounds is that you would think that the Venus Virgo bounds would be a benefic thing, but Venus is not happy there, so you have to look to her state, and she's in the bounds of Mars, right? And
Yes.
so there's this not so fun kind of relationship actually between them because even though they're square-ish, um, that's difficult. That's pretty difficult. Especially you've got Neptune, you've got Pluto, you've got the moon, like so much of this person's life is tied up within those two areas of life. That seems like when you have stelliums, you have a lot of planets in a house or two different houses that speak to each other. It's it's kind of hard to avoid that part. Everything in life does seem to funnel through this person's second, fifth house. So the way they make money through creative endeavors, or their kids, and maybe them being a huge cost to them over their lifetime because they've constantly had to take care of them. You know, start there, both ruled by that Mercury in the fourth house, right? The second and fifth both ruled by that Mercury. So maybe being tied to home too much, or some sort of obligation to family that they just cannot seem to escape from. It's
Yes.
enclosed by both signs. So
Obligation to family
yeah,
and a bit of
heavy.
backstory. Bit of backstory without giving too much away. Obligation to home was this person was really trying really hard to keep their parents together for a long. The father was an alcoholic. A lot of stuff going on in the home. So absolutely spot on. Sorry for interrupting. Carry on.
Oh,
There's also the Uranus-Saturn conjunction, which is in the seventh. That
And
kind
sorry,
of
let me add, Chiron is at 7 degrees fixed water, so 7 degrees Scorpio. And in the house systems, this doesn't really change that much if you swap it into say, Placidus or whatnot.
Yeah, with the 3-degree rising, not too much is getting moved over. Assuming like if I move to like an equal, the sun would move into the third, which would be interesting. So I'm curious about that third, fourth dynamic in their personality. So like speaking to the trouble at home, that does make sense. But yeah, I think just the fact that there's so many clusters happening. It's like you have the Saturn, Uranus, you have the Mars, Jupiter, and then you have Gemini, stellium all happening together. It's like I feel like there are a lot of like big clusters of energy that way. So I'm curious how those houses might play out in their career or in their experience. And the moon approaching Pluto, I think also kind of speaks to the like a parental, even though I typically would assume mom, a parental figure struggling with like Pluto type addiction.
Yes,
I could
yes,
see that.
spot on. That's exactly what happened. The mother was struggling with the father who was drinking too much.
Okay.
And yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, it makes sense that it would be the mother who is struggling with the father, especially because it's Pluto sandwiched in between the moon and Venus. It's like I could see those energies kind of like balling up together, and that Neptune's right there, the fact that they're all co-present. It's like that knowing that addiction is a part of it, I could see that playing out. Not to say that anyone with that combination would have that struggle, but it makes sense.
Well, and I wonder if this person, was able to liberate themselves through telling stories or being a storyteller or telling stories similar to their life story, or was somehow liberated by a partner that then, helped them share their life story. So the way my mind is going here is again the Mercury the fourth, but all of it ruling the fifth and the second. So earning money through creative endeavors. Venus is there. And then you've got this Saturn that's also in its own bounds barely. It's about ready to go back into Jupiter's bounds, but some sort of like meeting with someone that or a partner, somebody that, because that the Saturn rules the ninth and 10th. Sorry, I'm just going to go around the chart here for a minute. Something about meeting somebody or being involved with another person of power or influence with that Scorpio piece that allows them to become more public, like having to
So
go
good.
through that
So
Saturn
good.
Uranus partnership in order to get out of the fourth and be expressed in the ninth and the 10th house with that Saturn ruling it. Something along those lines is kind of where my mind's starting to kind of go.
I get shivers sometimes when you guys delineate because you're just explaining it. I was watching the whole biography yesterday, and you're explaining meeting a powerful partner that got them. I won't give away too much, but carry on. But absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
And that's all I was kind of going with that.
Chelsea, brilliant. That's all I'm gonna say because I didn't catch that.
I felt like I just went all the way around the chart and didn't really have a lot of it, just blah, blah, blah. So sorry about that.
No, but it's true. Like it is all connected. Like
That's how
even
it goes sometimes, yeah.
the fact that the fact that Pisces, Jupiter is in the fifth and ruling the 11th also, that tells me again, like whatever his or her that person's creativity is being reverberated out into the world, out to a large amount of people at least. And the MC again in the ninth, it's like worldwide, there's power in that worldwide famous or, known at least, remembered for all over the world or far, far away lands, or at least further away from where this person's from.
Absolutely.
So
100%.
being known overseas, maybe not worldwide, but like this is definitely also a person that is Pluto's in Gemini. That makes that person how old?
I love it. Keep overseas in mind.
I could definitely say older. not living
Oh,
anymore.
good point. So why, what are we looking at here?
The Pluto and Gemini, that is
So yeah,
sig-
that person's is already
not,
passed, or
yeah,
very old. The oldest
yeah,
person in the world.
World record break.
yeah. Unless that's what they're famous for. I'm gonna assume that's not it though. So yeah, probably past.
Well, I
Yeah, I
like
would.
what you did here. Oh, sorry, Kim, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, no.
I like what you did here, Callum, because again, you have an example of, the out of sect malefic, but in its own bound, being ruled by the insect malefic, but conjunct Jupiter. So you have this positive manifestation of what could potentially be an awful Saturn.
Yeah.
It's angular, so it's got some accidental dignity there, but it's interesting how, we kind of tend to, when you start to learn astrology, you have the good team and the bad team and the day chart and the night chart. And then you kind of have to understand as you get further in that there's so much more gray area to that. Yes, all those things still happen, but this shows how not everything that seems bad upon the surface actually ends up being bad. Now, was it probably the best relationship for this person? I don't know. There's got to still be that Saturnian element to it, that martial Saturnian element, but Jupiter's still there in a good house. And, so it's interesting that that is kind of how it's shown up for this person so far or in their life.
And to your point, do you feel like it was probably a sudden meeting of this person because of Uranus being there,
Or fated or chance or, something like
out of
that.
nowhere?
Yeah.
What I
There-
will add, not to give too much away, what I do tend to see with, I mean, because I've got it myself, the Saturn-Uranus conjunctions, whether it's looking back through history or recent times, I find a lot of status quo breakers. We've got the
Mm-hmm.
status quo, we've got the shake-up. A lot of people who do smash ceilings, they rumble up the status quo, those kind of signatures. But I love where you guys are going with this. Absolutely.
Oh, is it a political figure? Oh, no.
No.
Uh, um, I do like kind of the status quo breaker for a north node in the 10th as well. Like just kind of that faded. Um,
Yeah, in Aquarius,
yeah,
restructuring.
yes. Mm-hmm.
Aquarius is
Especially in
always
Aquarius.
about restructuring, right?
Mhm.
So it's looking at things differently and finding new ways to do the same old thing. So yeah, maybe this person had something to do with that. And it's definitely has to do with what Chelsea was saying, like communication, like so much energy in that second house, Gemini. Oh, the ruling planet of the chart is Venus, but it answers to that Mercury. So again, we go back to that fourth, second, fifth connection. Um, it is someone who definitely used even some of the struggles or the issues that they had in the home, or the things that were the themes around the home, to then create something out of it or change for other people. Again, going to what Kim just said about North Node being in the 10th house, is it like changing the fate of others? Their work might have helped change the fate of others.
Yes. Ooh, I love that. Absolutely. Yeah. What they did certainly changed and inspired, and absolutely, absolutely.
Who
And
is
you
it?
said it was a Scorpio Chiron,
Sorry. Yes, it's on 7 degrees Scorpio. Yeah, seven
so
degrees.
right off the descendant,
Yeah.
like that angular Chiron. I could see them having struggles that ends up changing the way things are going for others. I could definitely see that.
And that at 7 degrees, it connects it to the Mars Jupiter conjunction. It also connects it to the nodes. It's squared the nodes. So it's again like fated that this hurt or this, you know, um, it's also there's another 6 or 7, like the ascendant, also ascendant, descendant. Like I think it's interesting. Even the moon at 11 degrees is kind of, within that range. it connects it to the moon, and that moon, a little more loosely, obviously, but it definitely kind of connects all the dots for this person. Was this person, because Venus is not in its best dignity, was this person someone who struggled physically or on a day-to-day basis?
Not that I believe. They certainly had struggles in life in terms, let's say, of their position and what they had to do. I don't know how to rephrase this without giving too much away, but certainly struggle, not physical, but certainly there's an element of struggle in this person's life and a lot of hard work to get where they got to.
Maybe their voice, like their voice not being heard as much, or
I mean, I feel like their voice would be kind of powerful, but kind of in a Plutonian way. Like in that burn it down to rebuild, that phoenix energy. When I think of Pluto, I think of the phoenix. So that seems like that could play a piece of it. Like it would be someone who has something to say with all that Gemini, I feel like.
yeah.
Oh, they
Gemini
did.
has
So
things
they
to say.
certainly wrote a book about what they did, and very much well received.
Did they do speeches or no?
Not that I know of. They did write a book about what they accomplished, but I'm not sure about speeches. I'd have to look that up. All right. Any final thoughts? Anything that we've not touched upon?
Neptune conjunct the fortune is also interesting in the way, I think, because yes, there's a lot of energy in the second house. Is it being dissolved by Neptune? Was there actually, like, when it came to like getting paid, or I don't know, like some of the fortune wasn't clear or always clear to that person?
I like where you're going. In some way, symbolically, this person dissolved boundaries and has a connection to that Venus as well as an archetype. So there was
Mm,
an element here of dissolving boundaries. I like where you're going with that.
yeah, because it is a pretty tight conjunction, even though it's an outer planet and many people would have had, you know, Neptune there, in her generation, or in their generation. I will get it one day.
I feel like it's making me think like that code breaker energy.
Lilith in the first is always like someone who is on the outside of society or seen as the outside, right? Lilith's um archetype is very much the woman outside of the mainstream. So they might have been perceived when you first meet them as someone who doesn't fit in.
I love that, Laura. When we find out who this person is and the themes of not fitting in terms of the mainstream of what was, shall I say, expected. I won't give too much away, but I like where you're going.
Of the society at the time, because we obviously know this person's long gone, so society has changed a lot since then. So maybe not, it might not be
Absolutely.
true today, but it, in the time this person lived, she might have been perceived as out of out of the out of the norm, or different.
Absolutely. 110% spot on.
And for a woman, well, Taurus being woman energy, so it's like woman energy that's seen, like it's double, like I don't know. I don't know if this person was a woman, but if this person is a woman or was a woman, definitely seen as like, you know, a completely different type of woman at the time.
I'm dying. I'm sorry. I love it.
Spot on.
Sorry, can't
No, I
help.
love it. I love it.
I mean, another energy that was speaking to me was that like what was it, the radium girls? Like that was a a piece of it that was speaking to me, and I can't exactly, I think it's a Pluto.
Was that something to do with females working in the wars and working on. Okay, I think I know what you're alluding to. Yeah, interesting. I like that. All right, final thoughts. Anything else before we reveal who it is, and we'll come back and discuss.
In terms of foundational energy,
Hmm.
we definitely have air as
Yep.
well, air and earth are tied. Oh no.
No.
Yeah, we've got doing it. If we do it quickly, we've got the 4 immutable air, and the rest of them are equally balanced with 2 each. So we've got 2 for fire, earth, and water. So air certainly dominates, and we can certainly say the mutable energy dominates. We've got all the Gemini, we've got the mutable earth as well. So foundational energy, back to all what you guys were talking about, is the mutable air, is the foundational energy.
Mutable air.
And
It is
not
interesting that it all points back to the sun, though, because it like almost everything is pointing to Mercury, which will bring it back to the sun. Where it's like, oh, all that Gemini look to Mercury, all the Virgo look to Mercury. And it's like, I think Scorpio's the exception, but let me finish.
Nope.
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 That's Mars.
So it's like everything points back to the sun in Leo. So that's also kind of a cool piece
That's a
to
great
it.
point. The sun
Final
being the
dispositor.
sole dispositor.
Soul,
Yeah.
yeah.
All
That's
all of
all
these
done.
planets eventually all make its way back to the sun. Excellent point.
All
Yep.
like this person made it all happen themselves, or at least like it all comes back to them, whatever the energy is. It has to do with
Yes.
their person,
Mhm.
where they come from, because fourth house is like your roots, your ancestry. Maybe something tied to ancestry too, like where this person comes from in terms of
Did they become more famous post-mortem? Like after they died? Posthumous, what is it called? You
Yeah,
know?
that's an excellent question.
Just
I would
because
say
with the sun south node, the loss of self is what put them further into the 10th, is when they finally let all that go.
you know what, that's an excellent question. When we find out who it is, I think you guys can speak to that. I would say about equal. I think they were hugely famous at the time, and yeah, maybe the argument would be they became even more famous afterwards. But that's an excellent question, and for me, it's probably a balance. But you guys will tell me.
they were saying this person made the history books.
It's, I love it. You guys, spot on. And I love what you're saying about the sun. All the planets going back to the sun. This person had to work. Everything wasn't put on a plate for this person. They had to work really hard for what they did, and incredible achievements. All right, are we ready to find out?
Yes.
Yes.
Any wild guesses?
No. No idea.
Oh,
my
awesome.
God.
Yeah. Well, she's still famous for not being found. So
I mean,
there's your
air.
loss. There it
You've
is.
got it, exactly.
Didn't they think they thought they found her plane, like within the last year or two? I thought there was something in the news where they thought they discovered it or something.
Yeah, I think there was a photo taken, or maybe a company that's been searching out for the wreckage. And I believe if you Google it, there is maybe what looks like maybe an outline of a plane. I'm not sure, but yeah, I think that's right. Mm-hmm.
Look at all that Gemini air
Yeah, the flight, literally
flying
with the
by herself.
It's
She
literally
wasn't
air. It's flying.
with anyone else. She flew by herself. There's that
and you
Leo,
have
Sun,
the
Mercury.
more air in the 10th, like more air. Aquarius, like breaking
Mhm.
rules of air, because she's the first woman to do it, right? She's the first woman to do a transatlantic flight, or the first woman to fly.
Yeah, she did the first Atlantic solo, I think, on a
Yeah.
single engine. And
Mhm.
then when they were lost, I think it was she had the navigator, and then they did quite a lot of the journey, I believe, around the world. But unfortunately, they were lost. But you guys were so spot on, especially the lost bit. That's so spot on in this chart. But I found this chart interesting in terms of the female archetype. Now, if we go back to the foundational energy, which is the mutable air, we have the archetypes of the moon, Venus. We've got the Pluto and the Neptune, the generational planet. We're in the second house of values. Now, how many people and how many females did you inspire for decades after that to go and get the pilot's licenses, to go and work for airlines ultimately? So just wonderful inspiration. We've got the ascendant and the midheaven in the terms of Venus. We go back to Venus. Venus, as you said, Chelsea, is in the terms of Mars. Mars is in the terms of Venus, and having a connection there. Yes, it's a square, but for me, in my mind, as I was looking at the chart, it's that struggle against male dominated, what, you know, in those times, in quotes, what a woman should be doing. And she was like, no, you know, sod this. I'm going to go out, I'm going to get my pilot's license, and I'm going to break records and break up the status quo. Now we go back to the Uranus Saturn, male dominated area, the very, very few. I don't know if she was the very first female
I think her
pilot, but
husband helped her a lot.
Yeah, that's what I want to know about.
yes,
So what was the
yes.
Her
relationship piece?
husband helped her a lot, you know, to defend her to get to do it. He was a huge support from what I remember about it. Like, you know, if it, not that she wouldn't have been able to do it without him, but I think in that time it was crucial that publicly her husband was like, I support my wife, and they had a very strong marriage, at least publicly. I don't know behind closed doors, but he stood in front of the world to say, I'm okay with it, and everyone should be too. It's funny because now I see the Mars Jupiter conjunction as more of like gambling. Like she definitely
Oh, that's really good, actually.
gambling a lot, because it was a lot. It was very risky to fly.
She probably had fun.
Yeah,
Fifth
having
house.
fun for sure. She loved it.
Yeah.
It was definitely a gamble at the time because of the technology and everything. Like it wasn't done by many people.
Isn't the fifth house hobbies as well? Like did she start off as like a hobby and then it developed into something?
She said she had three main pillars in life that made her want to go into aviation. I think she said the first one was mechanics. The second one, I had it written down somewhere, was sports and games, like being experimental within sports and games. And I can't remember the other
there it
one.
is.
So fifth house, you guys were talking about the Jupiter and Mars. Okay, yes, we got that Mars. It's ruled in the 12th and it's conjunct Jupiter, maybe overdoing it at times or over risk taking. But you guys were so spot on
And
with
mechanics,
that.
isn't that Virgo also? And mechanics, like detail.
Detailed, yeah,
Yep.
put in absolutely. And I think, Kim, you were talking about the writing piece. Now, what's interesting about her title of a book was called The Fun of It. We're literally
Oh my
mutable
gosh.
air, and we've got the fifth going on, you know, the house just having fun, the fun of it.
Yeah, Mercury
so
is
cool.
a very cheeky planet. I call it the cheeky planet.
like that.
Loves to play jokes, loves to have fun. I definitely think she might have been a really fun person to be around.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And she struggled. She, again, going back to what you guys were saying, we had issues, parental issues, her home life. She was trying to keep her parents together, and she had to do various jobs, menial jobs for a while to save enough money for the first plane. And then, of course, as Chelsea, you were talking about before, meeting the partner really helped because I think he was a wealthy businessman. So I think that helped ultimately. But you guys were absolutely wonderful in these delineations. Fantastic.
Interesting.
Cool.
Well, thank you so much for another. This is honestly my favorite episodes. Is this having a chat, looking at charts, and just getting shivers up my spine when you guys start delineating. You're all so good with these charts. And for everybody watching, let us know if we've missed any delineations, put your thoughts in the comments, or as you were watching this, let us know if you guessed any of these charts or what you thought might have been interesting. But for you guys, tell me what's going on with you guys. So where can people find you? What's going on right now? What's going on with you guys?
I can be found at chelseacollinsastrology.com. Have scheduling availability there, a little bit about me. You can find more episodes that we did. If you can't find it through the Kepler website, they're on my site. I'm also getting involved with Astrologeeks. It is it's an astrology app for just, you know, the everyday person who wants to learn a little bit more just about entry-level astrology, as well as astrolocation. And I'll have a traditional timing technique area developing through that with Cindy McKeon and Joseph Mills, who started Astrologeeks. Cindy's also a teacher here at Kepler. So yeah, just kind of trying to stay involved, continuing to take classes at Kepler. Laura and I have been together since the very inception. So we've a few other people we've stayed through our cohort together. So we're going to do a horary this fall with Lee Lehman, which we're very excited about. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Who's next?
I'll let Kim go. I'll go very quickly. I have not much going on with me. I'm still a student. I'm still looking forward to more classes and finishing my certificates and diplomas. I do not have a website up, but if you Google me, you can probably find my email somewhere, and I'm happy to consult.
When you have that website up, one day we'll stick it on. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm working with Aspecting Astrologers. That's me and my partner, Kristen Lawhead, and we are doing small groups on Patreon right now. And we're on at least 3 times a month. We're talking about our charts and the transits that are happening. And it's more in a group reading type of setting. And we're just getting into what's going on in the transits, what's going on for us personally, what's going on for all of our Patreons, and it's been a great time aspecting astrologers on Patreon and Instagram.
Absolutely wonderful. And for everybody watching this, I'll leave the description to the Patreon links and websites, Chelsea, in the comment boxes and the description boxes. Certainly go and check all of those out. But thank you all so much for another brilliant episode. Again, I enjoyed these so much, and we're going to do it again.
Yes,
Thank
please.
you.
I love those.
Thank you.
Thank you, Callum.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you again next time. Bye.
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 Bye.